Hey, I'm Jim Best. I'm your host for this episode of NDI November, and I am being joined in studio, live and in person, by Gregor Jones from Panasonic. Gregor, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. On behalf of everyone at Panasonic, I want to say thank you for inviting us. As they say, we are in.
Excellent. We are in and we are NDI. That's where I thought you were going with that.
Oh, that's what I meant.
So we are going to be talking about Panasonic's Pro PTZ cameras with NDI capability, as well as the rest of the Panasonic NDI workflow. There's a lot more than just the PTZ cameras that we're going to be talking about today. So let's roll the bump and then we'll get right into the show.
NDI November, our third annual NDI November. Go to ndinovember.com right now and register and catch out all the great webinars and things we're doing all about NDI. You're going to learn all about how that technology works and all the latest products in that technology. Plus, you're going to get a free digital version of the unofficial guide to NDI when you register. We've got prizes. What kind of prizes? We've got PTZ cameras. We've got Wirecast. We've got New Tech University. We've got the book, ndinovember.com. Register now.
So once again, thank you for joining us. I'm Jim Bast, your host for this episode of NDI November, being joined by Gregor Jones from Panasonic. Gregor, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. So my name is Gregor Jones. I'm a territory account manager for the Northeast, and I cover all the pro video products. This includes PTZ, studio, cinema, switchers, Kairos, all the above.
All the great stuff that has NDI integrated into it, and that's what we're going to talk about today. A lot of our customers and people viewing today may have tuned in to talk about Panasonic Pro PTZ cameras. Mm-hmm. And as you can see from the slide that we have here, the Pro PTZ camera lineup for 2022 really has NDI all across that board once you get into the premium, platinum, and broadcast series.
Yep.
Where we don't have it is with the new entry-level cameras that fit into that Pro series. And, you know, it's interesting because it sounds almost like an oxymoron to say they're entry-level cameras, but they're part of the Pro series. Can you tell us a little bit about why Panasonic starts with that Pro nomenclature?
Sure, because when you get into the pro video, even our small huddle cameras, our small, POV or ultra wide angle PTZ cameras are very, very professional and include a lot of features that you're not going to get in a webcam or, one of the smaller consumer or prosumer type outfits. And so we did break it down into a professional, premium, and platinum series.
Absolutely. And what we're really going to focus on is the premium and platinum series, which have either NDI upgradability or NDI integrated into it. If we run through the product line very quickly on what you can see on this slide here, you'll see the premium cameras consist of three models. We have the UE40, the UE50, the UE80. Mm-hmm. Now, Gregor, what is the NDI compatibility with these cameras?
Right, so the UE40 is going to be NDI capable, meaning that you would just put the license onto the camera. The same thing with the UE50, but the UE80 will actually come with NDI HX as well as full-blown high bandwidth NDI. Be built in right out of the box.
Perfect. And that's an important difference when we're going to talk about NDI. The two different protocols, NDI HX versus what we consider full NDI, the difference in the bandwidth is that when you see that the camera is upgradable with a license, that upgradability gives you that NDI HX protocol, that NDI HX support. The cameras with NDI integrated into it have that NDI spec integrated, but also support NDI HX. And that's important because there are going to be some workflow diagrams that we talked about in a little bit where you don't necessarily want to mix and match the NDI protocols. So having that ability to keep all your cameras on NDI HX will play better with some of the production systems and other workflows. And now stepping up from the premium line, we have the Platinum series. Can you introduce these cameras to us?
Absolutely. So the Platinum series is going to start with the UE100, and then you're going to get the UE150, and then you're going to get the new, all-improved UE160. And by the way, just for fun, we're going to throw one high-def camera in there, and that's going to be the HE140.
Okay.
145. 145. And the UE100 is actually going to come with the NDI built into it, so NDI HX and the NDI full-blown. Right. And then the 150 will be capable of licensing up to the NDI HX, and then the 160 will also have NDI HX as well as NDI built into it right out of the box. Yeah.
And for those of you who don't see that last camera that Greg was mentioning, the 160 was just introduced at NAB New York just a few weeks ago. We do have some more information coming up about that camera later on in the show, but it's enough about the cameras.
Okay.
Let's talk about the technology. Let's talk about NDI. That's what our customers are here. We'll come back with the commercial pitch a little bit later on in the show, but really what we want to talk about with NDI November is how Panasonic enables this entire workflow. Not only through their PTZ cameras, but you support NDI in a lot of other ways as well. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the ways Panasonic supports NDI?
Sure. So Panasonic, and to not give a corporate pitch, but we are one of the companies that have one of the most comprehensive NDI offerings within all of our lineup, right? And so we're going to have NDI offerings in our switchers. We're going to have NDI offerings in our Kairos. We're going to have it in the PTZ cameras, like we just discussed.
Right.
But then if you have a PTZ, smart studio, but you have a camcorder that needs to go out the door, maybe for whatever reason, we also have NDI in the camcorders. And so the CX350 and the CX4000 will have NDI. It's pretty kind of simple to get your head around. It's a full solution, and if you're in the NDI workflow, Panasonic would just make a really excellent partner.
No, absolutely. And I think that's one of the themes that has come up quite a bit throughout NDI November is NDI and the future of this technology is to replace the SDI cable. In order to replace the SDI cable, not only do you need to put your PTZ cameras onto a network, but you need to put your traditional camcorders. And Panasonic gives you that capability with the CX350 or the cinema camera like the CX4000, and with their production switches as well, allowing you to create a full NDI infrastructure, which we're going to talk a little bit about now. So Gregor, can you walk us through the NDI HX and the NDI capability with these cameras that we talked about and kind of what we're looking at here?
Sure. So what you're looking at here is two things that the UHS 500 is going to be a conventional switcher, but it'll also give you the ability to add an NDI card, right? It says future release, but that card's actually already available. You can purchase it now. And the Kairos will have two NDI inputs into it as well. The Kairos is a whole different kind of beast where it takes everything you kind of know about switching and puts it into an IT and an IP platform. Having NDI in all of these different ways and then being able to go from PTZs or studios or say, for example, you're a rental house and you want to be able to make packages and put them in cases and send them out and know that they all work together. That's pretty much what we're looking at here. And then, the differences between the NDI and the HX and the NDI, I think we already kind of discussed, but that you can deploy a much larger fleet of cameras onto a smaller bandwidth with the NDI HX. And so it makes sense to have that in particular models and then to have a full-blown NDI available in some of the bigger heavy iron, as we call it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we see a lot too is the full NDI is a great protocol for the low latency. It puts a lot of the processing power and a lot of the horsepower that's required onto the camera itself. And that's why you're going to see it built into these flagship models that we're talking about. Whereas NDI HX, with that high efficiency, there is going to be a little bit more latency, completely forgivable in most workflows, but it does let you put more of that processing power on the production system. And now you can deploy, like you said, more of those cameras throughout your complete installation.
Yeah.
And with that too, it really plays into a live streaming format or even a built-in studio format. And that's what we're looking at with this. So can you tell us a little bit about a studio system and how NDI is really going to replace your traditional SDI setup?
Yeah, and maybe not a full replacement kind of idea, but it definitely will give you another option.
Sure.
And there will definitely be a replacement for SDI because it's the old copper way of doing things. It'll go the way of tape, I feel like, and so basically the studio way that you kind of think about it now is everything's coming over the copper. I think probably your audiences are pretty smart and they know this workflow. They've gone through this workflow. And then as you get into this new world of having things kind of on the network and having this NDI capability, what you can do is really scale out and much faster, right?
Yes.
And so where what was taking all the resources for one camera can now go out to 6 cameras or more, for example. And one of the things to kind of keep in mind is that when you're doing this, there are a lot of products out on the market that have NDI. But with Panasonic, we've been building these type of cameras longer than anyone. If we're talking about robotic cameras, and we've been in the business of studio cameras as long as anyone. And so having NDI and one of the world's leading manufacturers together gives you this ability to do these live streaming scenarios that you just when failure is not an option. This is a great path to take.
Yeah, absolutely. No matter how you cut it, when you're using a traditional SDI cable, you need your video source on one end of the cable and whatever production system you're plugging into on the other side. You're always going to be at a point-to-point limitation over that cable. Mm-hmm. What NDI has given you, and to what you alluded to also, is now you're getting all of these video sources on your network. It gives you that ability to scale up very quickly, and now you can pull in that video source from absolutely anywhere at any time. Mm. And not only can you pull up the video source from your PTZ cameras, from your handheld camcorders, you can use other NDI workflow products like NDI Studio Monitor to see your feeds, or NDI screen capture to send a PowerPoint presentation like we are today in our own studio. And it really allows you to get this whole workflow onto the network.
That's right. And this isn't impossible to do without NDI, but with NDI, you don't need to memorize all the IP numbers, and it's, recognize it as soon as it plugs in. It just makes it so much easier and so much quicker. And, time is money.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a fact.
Absolutely. And scalable, and that's really, I think, the key word is if you're working in an installation and someone says, hey, I would love to have another camera over there. Getting that camera onto the network, you've now solved that solution. Mm-hmm. If you've already used all your I/O ports on your production system, now you have a whole other issue. Well, how do I get that other camera in? If we can get that camera on the network, NDI gives us that capability very easily. And I think this is why it's also being adapted in a live staging environment. Mm-hmm. In a staging world, one production versus another can identify the need for another camera. Hey, maybe with this set design, I need to add a few more shots. I need to add a few more angles. And one of the things that's great about the flagship cameras we were talking about in that Platinum series is that you're getting that optical image quality that these stage designers are looking for. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about the staging system we're seeing here?
So I think what we're looking at here is mostly just a visual representation of the ecosystem that Panasonic offers, right?
Right.
So not only do we have the PTZs and the camcorders like we said, but we have projectors and we have Kairos and we have all these other things that kind of tie into a network. And so basically you can just kind of see where our head's at and where the future is of production and how we're creating a situation where there's going to be one nucleus and then everything's going to hang off that and it's all going to come together and you're going to be able to switch it and send it and take it and feed it and just a good example of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I do see some questions coming in. We're going to handle most of these towards the end of the show as we go through it. But one that I do want to address now is talking about SMPTE 2110. Will SMPTE 2110 devices be able to natively use SRT or NDI sources?
That's an engineering question. I like that question, but if we can take that and get a real answer for it, I'd like to really answer that one.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things I want to point out is SMPTE 2110 is a different and unique protocol on its own. I don't want to say it's a competitive protocol because one of the things that we're seeing are workflows that have the need for including SMPTE, SRT, NDI, Dante Audio, and all these things working together. And that's the beauty of the network. So I think really the proper way to answer that question is to reach out to our team here. You can send an email to sales@broadfield.com. We will work with you to identify exactly your workflow, what you're looking to do. We can get you in touch with the folks at Panasonic, and we can get you the answer to that as well. But yes, I think, and that's one of the things that we see with products like the Cairo system that's coming out, is there's a whole IP workflow that really gets into the nitty gritty, depending on what these customers are looking to do in their installation, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. No, there's an entry point to getting your head around that whole concept. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. So one of the things I wanted to point out is there's a great study, case study on the Panasonic website that talks about the Alaska State Capitol and how they're broadcasting right from there using the Panasonic cameras with NDI technology, with PoE, and how they really boiled down that installation to nothing but Cat6 cables.
Yeah.
You know?
And this is one great case study. You can find many more on the Panasonic website, which I'm sure where this came from. And just get out and talk to people. I mean, I can't tell you enough how many of the public access channels and house of worships and small studios and corporate environments and, NDI has infiltrated the market and people are definitely using it.
Absolutely. I think, in a house of worship, to be able to put the video sources in the chapel itself, as well as the overflow rooms, and to be able to drive to iMag projection in-house and the production system that streams out to the web. These are all things that are very easy to do with a network infrastructure like NDI technology.
Yep.
And faster workflow with the HEVC codec, with the streaming capability, with all this stuff built in. Not only are you including that NDI technology, but Panasonic's goal is really to get that content out to the world as quickly and easily as possible too.
Yeah. And, without drilling down on any one particular camera, all the flavors of streaming are just available. Find your mark on the lineup, dig down into it, give us a call Broadfield. If there's a way to do it and it's being done, we can get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can get there with options, We showed you the slide we opened up in the beginning with the slide of the 2022 PTZ camera lineup. We talked about the camcorders. We talked about the different flavors of production systems and all of the other NDI products that are available out there in the world. Panasonic plays well with all of these things. With NDI HX, with the full band NDI, you're going to have the options of how these fit into the right installation. So what I wanted to do here, and this slide has a lot of information on it, but there's a few key points that I do want to talk about, because we've talked about all of the great NDI technology and the stuff that NewTek has brought to us with NDI, now owned by the VisRT Group. But we want to talk about what Panasonic is doing with the NDI. Now, Grady, you and I already talked about the complete line of products. We talked about the PTZ cameras. We talked about the camcorders. We talked about the switches. But now what I think is great about those cameras is that everything has a simultaneous output. Not just NDI, but you're still supporting the HDMI and SDI workflows too.
Absolutely. Take the UE150, for example. That's such a popular camera. Just crazy sales out there. People love the camera. We always getting positive feedback on it. But one of the things that they really love is that when they turn that camera on, all those spigots are on and they're all coming out at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which again gives you more flexibility in the installation. And before anyone asks about availability of the UE150, because this question always comes up, these cameras are shipping in high volumes now. We're pumping out the orders from here on a daily basis. So definitely work with your integrator, get your projects in. Those cameras are definitely becoming more and more available. But right, the other thing I want to talk about is not only the simultaneous output with NDI, SDI, and HDMI, but you also have something you need with the multicast output with NDI HX. So what exactly is the multicast and what is that allowing the customer to do?
So just being able to bring in all the cameras and then send them out wherever you need them to go at any given time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So now I can take my camera with that multicast output and not only view it on my production system, but at the same time, I could pull that camera up on the iMag projection. And it does allow you to send that camera to multiple destinations on that network, really giving you even more flexibility. And the flexibility and scalability is really, I think, the point that we want to get across today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, we started with the cameras. Let's talk about the cameras again. We're going to jump right to the premium series. This is the series that starts with that NDI capability. Walk us through the models that we're looking at here.
So right now what you're looking at is the UE40, the UE50, and the UE80.
Okay.
A couple of things you want to note here is the difference in them first off, right? So the UE40 is just going to have the HDMI, the UE50 is going to have the HDMI and the SDI, and the UE80 is going to have the HDMI, SDI, and the gen lock. So that's going to be one of the major differences when you're trying to decide which one you need. You're definitely going to have to figure out if you're getting the right outputs, right?
Perfect.
And then when you're looking at the model numbers, one thing you want to keep in mind is where it says, if it says UE40W, that means it's a white unit. If it says UE40K, that means it's a black unit.
Makes sense.
And as far as the NDI goes, in the 40, you're going to get capability of upgrading the license to an NDI HX.
Yep.
Same thing with the 50. But with the 80, it's actually going to come already built in there. It's got the full bandwidth and it's got the NDI HX in there.
Perfect. And then from there, we jump to the Platinum series.
Yeah, and the bread and butter. So the UE100 is a really great option if you're trying to keep the prices low and you need the 12G and you need the NDI and all the stuff built into there. And then the HE145, which also I forgot to mention earlier, is upgradable to the NDI HX.
Great. Yep.
And is the high definition version. And then you have the UE150, which is the flagship camera. It's the one that, everyone loves this camera. And that one is also upgradable to the NDI HX. And then, lensing and having SRT and the ability to do fiber. And,
Yep.
with the 150, you get a 1-inch sensor. I mean, these are just huge perks and, with going
and that's
Panasonic.
why it's the flagship camera.
That's right.
So for the models that we talked about that are NDI HS upgradable, the NDI HS license is available from Panasonic directly, from NewTek directly, from any of your Panasonic resellers. The NDI HS license is a $299 add-on.
Yep.
And now I want to talk about the new flagship that's coming next year, and that is going to be the brand new UE160. Now, you guys introduced this camera at the NAB New York show just a few weeks ago. Tell us a little bit about the 160.
Yeah, so the 160 will be available in Q1. It's going to be, my favorite joke here is that this one goes all the way to 11. So
Okay.
The UE150 was the flagship camera. Now the UE160 is going to be the flagship camera. The UE150 is definitely not going away. So before that question comes up, because it's been asked a lot, is it going to replace the 150? It's not. The 150 has a very serious place in the lineup. It's doing really well and it's not going anywhere. The 160 is for the people who need that extra little bit, like XLR inputs, tally lights on the back.
Yep.
All the additional ability to do 2110, large sensor with the crop.
Yep.
Just all the fun stuff that comes out of the 160 that you wasn't going to be able to get in the 150.
Yes, and for the audience joining us today, the new 160 will have NDI HX and full bandwidth NDI built into it. For our customer who asked the question earlier, it is going to have that ST2110 option. So again, we're really going to be able to check a lot of boxes with the workflows and whatever you need on any of these Panasonic models. And now, of course, if you're looking at a Pro PTZ camera, the next question is going to be, how are you controlling that?
Yeah.
Obviously, with the NDI built in, you can use any of the NDI controllers on the market. You can use any of the universal controllers on the market. Some of the best controllers, I think, are the ones that Panasonic makes themselves. So you have really two great options to choose from here with the RP60 and the RP150.
That's right. The RP150 is kind of the go-to if you're going to do on-camera movements. A lot of that technology exists in the mechanics and the actuators and stuff in the handle there to just make that so smooth that you can really do on-camera movement.
Great.
And along with like touch screen and the ability to bring a 150 image back in a wide and get crop control, so you can do 3 crops on one 4K image, for example. And many other perks, program memory, trace memory, things like that. And then if you need a smaller footprint, you can go with the RP60. The RP60's got the monitor on it, not a monitor, but a screen where you can see, as opposed to the old 50. It's just a really great upgrade from the previous version.
Yep, absolutely.
And I love that you put the RM50 on here. A lot of people forget, but you can actually use a little IR. You have a volunteer or someone who is never going to touch one of these controllers, but they know how to use a TV remote.
Yep.
You can hand them one of these RM50s. So that's great to have that up there. And then, of course, all the software controllers that we give you for free, right? And
Yes.
so PTZ Control Center
And auto tracking
auto
and all that.
tracking.
Yes.
Auto tracking is so popular right now. I can't tell you enough. And it's just getting better and better and better, and people are loving that. So
Absolutely.
lots of ways to control the camera.
And again, don't forget the production system itself. You can do a lot of these controls within any production system out there, including some of the Panasonic production systems that we're going to talk about in just a moment. In addition to the PTZ cameras, we have talked quite a bit about how Panasonic has NDI available in their camcorders as well.
That's right.
And this includes the CX350 and the CX4000.
That's right. And the CX350 is a really great complement camera to the CX4000. If you're in that camcorder and you're looking around, definitely give these cameras a look.
Yep.
They're big sellers. They're lots and lots of features. And the build quality is what you come to expect from Panasonic. They're tough as nails. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And then the production systems. And here we're showing the UHS 500. And of course, the new line that Panasonic is bringing out which is the Kairos system.
That's right. Yep. And so, and the UHS 500, if you're in that, copper workflow, this is a really great switcher. It's got all the right stuff. It's got all the right moves. And now you can add a board to it and you can upgrade it with some NDI in it, right?
Yes.
And then if you are trying to think about, what about the future of production?
Before you get into the future of production, I do want to clarify, because it did come up earlier. This NDI board is available for the UHS 500 now, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yep.
Yes, because I know on the slide earlier we said future availability, but it is available now. It is shipping.
Yep.
So if you're looking at that UHS 500 production system, you can outfit that full production system today to support all your NDI capability.
Correct. Yeah.
And now for the future of Kairos.
Oh, you're right. So, and then if you're trying to get your head around, what the future of switching is going to look like, and when MEs don't matter, and you can bring in any kind of resolution or any kind of frame rate or whatever you want, the Kairos is definitely a good thing to look at.
Yep.
It's kind of new, and people are just beginning to wrap their heads around it, because you got to get out of the idea of everything has to go over some copper and, like you said, come from one place and end up on another place.
Yes.
So the Kairos is pretty phenomenal, and it takes two NDIs into it as well.
And for our Broadfield dealers who are joining us, Broadfield can absolutely help get you authorized for the Kairos systems. Work with your Broadfield sales team. We'll work with Panasonic's channel team, their territory managers, and we'll make sure we go through all the right steps to support all of your projects. NDI, IP, 20, whatever is necessary, we will help you support anything that you need to bring those out to your installations and to your customers. Just checking to see if we had any other questions come in today. Gregor, I know one of the questions I have for you is, in looking at all of these different systems with the PTZ cameras, with the handheld camcorders, I'm sure there's always a lot of questions on which camera is the right camera for the system that I'm doing. Mm-hmm. How do you best answer? How do you help walk a customer through that?
Sure. So at Panasonic, we put a lot of resources into helping people answer those questions, having, people in the field, engineers in the field, laboratories that people can visit and test and do things like that. What I like to do is I like to have people go backwards. What is the final thing you're trying to do? And then just step that backwards. And then generally you can find at least, the 2 or 3 cameras that might fit in there.
Yes.
And then what happens a lot of times is people find out, well, gosh, I for just a little more, I could get a UE150, and that thing's loaded with all the stuff, and it'll take me for the next 10 years. And so, you can always kind of go up. And that's one of the great things about Panasonic is we have so many options. Even if you thought you were just going to come in and get a camera that would do just this, you may find that Panasonic offers a camera that'll do that, plus this, plus that, plus outside, plus whatever.
Absolutely. And having that flexibility sometimes helps justify the step up, because you expand what you're capable of with that camera.
Yeah.
We have a nationwide network of Panasonic authorized resellers and integrators that are trained in the full product line. They know how to fit these into the installations. Quite frankly, they've installed this stuff before. They've done it with new tech systems. They've done it with Netgear switches. They've done it with all of the great things that we've talked about this entire NDI November. The great thing is that all of these dealers are supported by trained Panasonic territory managers like Gregor that can help kind of worked through the workflow and made sure that everything made sense from beginning to end. So if you have questions about that, you can reach out to us, register at ndinovember.com. We'll be happy to share with you an integrator in your area. Send an email to sales@broadfield.com. We can help connect the right installation with the right integrator and kind of help get everything up and running.
I gotta agree that Broadfield definitely has the best integrators on the planet.
Thank you, Gregor. Definitely agree with that also. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Such a pleasure.
Really appreciate that. If you are tuning in for our NDI November shows, we have a stacked schedule for you the rest of this week and even more shows coming up over the next 2 weeks. If you've missed a show that interests you, you can tune in to our YouTube page to see the full channel playlist there. Register at ndinovember.com to see great shows like this and to be entered for all of the great prizes that we are giving away throughout the month. Thank you for joining us today. Tune in for all of our shows and check out our schedule at ndinovember.com. Thank you.
NDI November is going on all month long for all things NDI. Your one-time registration gains you access to all the informative webinars with great guests and tons of giveaways. Check out the full schedule and register at ndinovember.com. Giveaway prizes include BirdDog P100, JVC PZ200N camera, Telestream Wirecast Pro license, NewTek University class, and more. See all the giveaway prizes and register now at ndinovember.com.